Hello, people of grace. For our pastoral connect today, I want to talk about these statements that Jesus makes at the end of each of his letters to the seven churches in the book of Revelation. Because at the end of each of those letters, he kind of gives us a gut check. He says, to the one who overcomes. Different translations might say to the victor or to the one who conquers. But what does it mean to be an overcomer? He says, to the one who overcomes, I will give. And then he makes these seven statements. And we're not going to talk about any of those seven statements today. We'll follow up with those in future Pastoral Connects. I just want to talk about what does it mean to be an overcomer? What is this gut check that Jesus puts at the end of each letter to the one who overcomes? Well, first of all, only those who end up reconciled to Christ. Christ is in all and above all and through all. Only those who end up reconciled to who Christ is overcome the world. John tells us this in 1 John chapter 5. So there's the first gut check, is where are you with Jesus in all of this? Where are you with the Spirit of Christ? But then we have to kind of unpack this idea of overcome. Because this world is full of discouraging things and challenges. And because of that, and because of our instincts to avoid pain and seek pleasure, which are not automatically bad, we tend to go through life and really try to avoid the negative experiences and pull out the positive ones and act like we can separate them. Well, this world doesn't really let you do that. It's always throwing things at you. And the negative ones tend to stick with us more. And so if we keep trying to separate the negative from the positive, we become very avoidant, maybe very obsessive or fearful to other people who might appear very controlling or critical or judgmental, and just unable to just really be out there and be for people and engage life and have joy, even though this world is the way it is. Because this world is what can be called a cursed world. And so everything's mixed up. And that's what Paul is trying to tell us in 1 Corinthians 10, is that you will face many challenges, but there is no test that is overtaking you that is except what is common to people, to humanity. And with the obstacle, the test, God will provide a way of escape. So it's not, is this a test or is this a way of escape or a blessing? It's that in your circumstances, you have to gain this kind of 180-degree vision to see everything around you and see what God is trying to show you about how you can be an overcomer and escape this challenging situation. Because that word for overcomer is not playing games. It's someone who overcomes life or death obstacles, someone who wins in battle, someone who wins in court, where if they are declared innocent, they are the victor. If they're declared guilty, maybe they're put to death. And when you start thinking about very serious obstacles or a life or death battle or a courtroom scenario, you're starting to get a metaphor for how important this life is. This life is a battle for the human soul and your soul. And when it comes to that fight, winning isn't everything. It's the only thing. And Jesus tells us this. What does it profit you if you win the whole world, but you lose your soul? So as Jesus speaks to the church, all of these seven letters are written to churches. He's not taking anything for granted, and he's coming to the end of the letter and saying, do you really believe in me? Are you committed to me? Are you reconciled to Christ, who is in all and through all and above all? Are you on that trajectory? Because if you are, I will give you the victory. But this is a fight that you have to find a way to gain that victory. In the end, there's only those who win the battle for their soul and those who lose the battle for their soul. And losing the battle for your soul isn't really about all these obstacles and challenges. It's about what they do in you. It's about how the world system gets inside of you and draws you away from your devotion to Christ. It's about how you have elements within your own being, what we call somewhat loosely the sin nature, or I like to call the sin beast, and how that hijacks every circumstance to try to rule over you and to make you controlling and out of alignment with God's Spirit, because it's controlling you. And then finally, the devil and the demonic realm. Christ showed that this life was really about not letting those things take you from God, even if it means you get crucified, because Christ is the ultimate example of overcoming that in this obstacle, in this challenge, in this cross, in this Gethsemane moment, is also the way of the cross. The apostles were quite bold in saying, "We preach Christ crucified." We should think about that for a minute. We preach Christ died. Well, everybody dies. And he may have died a very noble death, and he did, but how does that show that we can really overcome? They only could boldly preach Christ's mastery over himself that he showed in the crucifixion, because what follows the crucifixion and comes through the crucifixion is the resurrection. And that shows Christ's victory over everything else. So don't shrink back from your crosses, from your Gethsemane moments. Rather, in those times, be an overcomer. And Christ will give you victory in the way that is the only way, the way that is he himself, that he walked. He is the way. In him we have victory. Imitate Christ and be an overcomer by defining what it means to be a winner correctly. When we look at life correctly, it changes nothing out here, but everything in here. But the world and its desires pass away. The one who wins a battle for their soul goes on forever. And that's an